Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is failing forward. Uh, I like to say no kid learns to walk without skinned knees, right? And as adults, we don't wear our bumps and bruises well. We use them to justify quitting or or destroying our self-esteem. So let's look at what happens when we use these failures to inform us, and we get to then fail forward into mastery. So good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. It's great to have you here with us this morning. I think we're in for a great conversation this morning. And before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and rub your fingers against your palms. Rub them vigorously so you can feel the heat building and the tension and the texture and the sensation, the friction, and allow yourselves to feel that friction and become present as you stop rubbing your hands together to that tingling, that tickling, that sensation that lets you know you're alive and brings you present into this amazing physical form through which we get to experience life. Welcome. So good to be here with you this morning. Failing forward. So this, and failing is in massive air quotes, by the way. Failure is a construct, as is success for that matter. But I have a dear client whom I adore, who just started an amazing radio show. And the very first episode just ran, and it was live. And good morning, Lisa. Welcome. So good to have you here this morning. We're talking about failing forward. And anyway, so she has been preparing for this thing for months, getting the equipment, getting the guests, putting everything in order, dotting every I, crossing every T, taking care of every possibility, and really preparing this thing so magnificently, covering every angle. And the day of the debut or the premiere, there were technical glitches that made it so they couldn't broadcast it in the way that they normally would broadcast it. So instead of going on Zoom, they had to go to a phone call. And this is at the time of airing, right? So already she was feeling like behind the eight ball because things were just threw off whatever rhythm there might have been and what was practiced and what was anticipated. And one thing after another happened, just one thing after another where because of the technical glitches, it threw the timing off. The mic was on in a break and there was some conversation, not embarrassing, but there was conversation that wasn't part of the broadcast. I mean, there were all kinds of things that went on, and the interview that she did was spectacular. The guest was spectacular. People called in, the interaction was spectacular. And so the question is, and I think that this, for many of us who are perfectionists or recovering perfectionists, the temptation might be to focus on all the quote unquote failures. My take on it was to congratulate her for so artfully getting all of these obstacles out of the way. All the things that she was most afraid of happening happened, every one of them. Like it was such a gift to have all of it get out of the way, so that now she knows she can handle whatever happens. And we had done a lot of preparation around that before she even got on air, to say, yeah, you're going to mess up. You are 100% going to mess up. That's part of it. And that's all learning. And half the things that get messed up were out of her control anyway, more than half. So the thing is that when we allow that's what's going, that life is going to present us with all kinds of opportunities for bumps and bruises, and rather than getting knocked down and staying down, we get back up and say, oh, okay, I get how that happened. And now I learned something to maybe be more cautious in this respect in the future, or to lift my feet, or whatever it is I'm learned from that bump or bruise, right? And so failure, again, it's a construct. And I choose to, and since I've chosen to see failure as feedback, I have had a much happier life, because I haven't been continuing as I did in the past to identify myself as a failure. Right. So yes, this attempt failed, that attempt failed, but I am not a failure. I get to learn from it. It's feedback. And so the other thing about this notion of failure is that it is tied to a very specific goal, right? Or a very specific expectation. And so we've talked a lot about the difference between goals and intentions. And so in the context of having a goal, of having the first episode of a radio show or a podcast or whatever it is in your life, having it come off perfect, if that's the goal, you either make it or you don't. You either make it or you fail to have it be perfect. If the intention is to engage people, is to enroll people, uplift people, then the ups and downs, the bruises, the bumps that are something that might otherwise have been perceived or interpreted as failure just become incidents along the way that become fodder for more content or more conversation, right? Because when we're looking to uplift people, what are we uplifting people and ourselves from? From stumbles, right? From falls. So if everything is perfect all the time, and we erase our blemishes and we erase our scars, maybe there's a part that's kind of trying to erase our humanity and the richness of the process of life itself. So life is messy, people, right? You don't need me to tell you that. Life is messy. And when we have this idea that it's supposed to be perfect and pristine, and we measure our lives against that fabrication that impossible fabrication, then that is just the purest recipe for misery. Lisa says, yes, it is. Life is messy. Well, exactly. And one of our favorite things, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things, and probably a lot of you as a kid, was to play in the puddles, play in the mud. And it was messy. And there was life and vitality there, right? And when we try to do it right, what are we doing? We're shutting down our life force. We're giving ourselves mandates to exit from real engagement in life. Get messy. Get messy. And then, that is a big part of life, is being in the mess and then figuring out how to clean it up, or how to create something new out of it, right? That is what engages us in life. And so Lisa says, I still jump in puddles, muddy or not, LOL. Well, good for you, Lisa. That is about like really being engaged in life. We don't want to just have to step around the puddles. Let's make a splash, right? Let's make a splash. Let's enjoy the messiness instead of trying to keep everything pristine. So, this was a personal story. And I'm trying to think about how to tell it without outing the person that it's about. I don't know if I can. But I knew this person who had, I'm going to obscure it as much as possible here. I knew this person who had experienced a lot of trauma in their childhood, where just literally things blew up, literally. And so their intention or their attempt through life was to try and control life, keep it under control. And this went so far as to how the rug got vacuumed, because the rug wasn't considered vacuumed unless all the tracks from the vacuum cleaner went in the same direction. It's kind of like if you look at the football fields that have been manicured by the lawnmower, it's always in this perfect pattern. And here's the challenge with that perfect pattern. When the living room would be vacuumed and all the patterns of the vacuum cleaner were going in the right direction, if there were any footsteps in that living room, it destroyed the perfection of the pattern. But the footsteps represented life. It's called a living room. And the footsteps in that living room represented life. And so, that's the messiness. That's the messiness of life. And that's the vitality of it, is the growth, the changing, the cycles. And Rosalind says, paintbrush to canvas. The first stroke is open. I imagine it being too open rather than copying an image. What image do you envision? Yes, yes, yes. So Rosalind, what you're talking about is the empty canvas being like such a deep intimidation. Same thing for writers with the empty page. So once there's a mark on the canvas, once there's a word, then you can get started, but starting with that infinite possibility can be massively intimidating. So maybe the thing to do is to just put a bold mark, regardless. You can always erase it or paint over it or write something else or throw out that page. But if it's something that just gets you started, so that you're not dealing with the vastness of the possibility, where you are able to narrow it into a moment that you can just start. I remember having a client who was doing pottery, and what they were stifled by is the notion that they would, that what they were making, they couldn't make money with what they were making. And then trying to figure out what to make to be able to make money, and what to make that would be able to sell, that would be good enough. So there were a whole bunch of conversations all woven in there, like first the whole "it doesn't count unless I can sell it" conversation, which is a big thing in and of itself. Then there was "it's not good enough, I'm not good enough." And so we created an exercise to go and create something awful, to just try and create something ugly, and deliberately create something awful to get away from this "it has to reach a certain standard." And then we got to this other one where it's like create something awful, or create something and just destroy it. That it isn't about the thing. The thing wasn't the objective. It was the creation process that was the objective. So make something, and rather than getting attached to the outcome, destroy it. Just if it's clay, lump it back into a lump of clay so you can make something else out of it. Because then you get to be in the process of feeling the clay, creating the shape, feeling the flow, and that it's not about the result. It's about the process. Life is what we live on the way to getting wherever it is we think we want to get. And so that's this whole thing about failure. Failure only exists in the context of a defined goal or expectation. And otherwise, as long as the intention is there, it's not failure. It's bumps and bruises maybe along the way, or left turns that were unexpected acts of grace that took us into new directions that we wouldn't have even imagined had we not been present to the process. And had we only been focused on the goal, we might have missed this opportunity to go explore this path into the forest that we hadn't seen, or we wouldn't see if we were so focused on just getting from here to there. That we might have missed this wonderful discovery of a little cottage back in the woods, or this very special flower that was along a path that we wouldn't have taken. Right? So this notion of failing forward, that's part of it. And part of it is also facing our worst fears. So to circle back around, so Lisa says it's like collecting no's. As you get wrong answers, you strive to do better. That's called growth. Or you learn from it. It's not just do better. I mean, what did they say? Edison had, I don't know how many hundreds of ways not to make a light bulb, right? And were they wrong? Well, so many discoveries have been made by getting the wrong answers, science-wise. So, for instance, and I don't remember what he was actually trying to create, but my dad was a veterinarian, and he had a client who was this mad scientist who worked for Johnson and Johnson, and who had a monkey fetish. And what I mean by that is he had a bunch of money, and he had a house filled with monkeys. He bought a yacht, a wooden yacht, a 54-foot boat to teach his chimpanzee how to drive it. His monkeys ended up being in a foundation that was funded by all his money, but he discovered the No More Tears formula for baby shampoo by mistake. So was that a failure? you know, it was a failure if you want to say, well, the only thing that mattered was what he was trying to achieve wasn't achieved. But what did he find? He found something that created a fortune for him and research around all kinds of primates. So I think that discovery happens along the way, often to something else. You know, we're looking to try and find something here, and we find something over here. It happens all the time. And it is called growth, and it is called discovery. And if we can be engaged with our lives as a process of discovery, rather than something that we succeed at or we fail in, and we learn from our bumps and bruises, our quality of life is going to be quite radically transformed. Our experience of life exists then in an entirely new context, doesn't it? Where we're on this unfolding adventure. And even, and maybe especially, when we're in the darkest moments, if we can cultivate a curiosity about it, it may be a gift of grace that helps to extract us from our sense of overwhelm and loss and despair. You know, if we can cultivate curiosity, and if we can find a place of wonder, a place to step back from our encompassing grief or anger or hurt, you know, if we can step back from it and see it with curiosity, if we can see it as part of a grander picture, it might give us at least momentary relief from the profound challenges that so many of us experience in life. And I think particularly now at this time in the evolution of the world, at this moment of time, this is a very profound moment where we face choice on so many fronts, where we face major choices on so many fronts, really choices that can impact the quality of all life on Earth, where we face choices individually and collectively that will potentially change the course of history for thousands of years. If we can find a way to be in this evolutionary mindset, this not black and white, but this transformational mindset of relieving ourselves from failure and allowing ourselves to receive information as feedback, then we can perhaps engage at a higher level, because it allows us the freedom and grace to perceive our actions as effective or ineffective, you know, where we can course correct. You know, if we're not so committed to the outcome that there's a right way and a wrong way, that we can then course correct more readily, more fluidly, more responsively, which is what we really need to be able to do at this very, very interesting time. You know, there's such an acceleration of information, of change, of possibility. There's such a rapid emergence of everything that we need to be able to be more fluid in our adaptations. And when we allow things to be feedback rather than failure, then we can cultivate that responsiveness that allows us to engage in a more vital way and a more responsible way, a more responsive way also to the demands of this unique moment in history. So I encourage you to think beyond the limitations of the notion of failure and to engage with life as an unfoldment that is giving us feedback all the time, that is allowing us to be correcting and recalibrating from one moment to the next, and embrace that as possibility in each moment, the new possibilities that emerge when we are paying attention to the feedback that we're getting. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up for this morning. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern, also the Enlightened World Network YouTube channel. And I invite you to please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living, EWN One with the Earth, all their Facebook pages. And I thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful to you for your engagement in these conversations, for hanging with me and being such a rich contribution. And until next time, so much love and appreciation to you. Hope to see you again here really soon.